Welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Club. My name is Jessamy G. I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful co-host, Miss Alice Edie. Hey, Alice.
Hello, Jess.
And today we are joined by our beautiful guest, Miss Tamzen Hayes. Welcome, Tamzen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure. I was saying just before we started recording that in my head your name is Misty because your Instagram handle is Miss T Hayes. So I'm like, Misty Hayes.
Yeah, that's it. That's what.
Yeah. But it's not.
No, it's not.
Have you guys, this is completely unrelated to anything and we are about to start the actual content, but don't you ever find when people have names like that where it's one word, if you pass the word wrong, like if you make the cutoff at the wrong point, you can think someone's handle is something completely different to what it is?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Remember the sus anal bum? What? Sorry.
What? Don't say sorry. Continue with that train of thought.
So this
Welcome, Tamzen Hayes.
Remember Susan Boyle, who shot to fame on what was the show?
Idols, wasn't it?
Like The Voice, or maybe it was
Must be.
I think it was early Idols. It was like early that kind of stuff.
That's right. It was one of the singing reality TV
in Britain?
shows. Yes, that's right. And was like this very sort of like unassuming middle-aged woman who then like walked out and performed this amazing like opera piece and everyone was like, whoa, Susan Boyle. Anyway, when she had her album launch, the hashtag they were using was anyway, hang on, I need to write it down to get it, but it was like Susan album party or Susan album. Anyway, so it's spelled sus anal bum party. If you got it up wrong and everyone's just like,
Everyone's like, wow, we've sold so many more tickets.
Oh, poor Susan.
I know, poor Susan. But it was almost like the perfect, like she as a figure was like the opposite of a sus anal.
There's so many people that would have just like taken that and run with it and been like, this is hilarious, like but not her probably.
It's not her vibe.
Not her brand, is it?
Yeah. I don't know what ever became of Susan Boyle. Anyway, we're not interviewing her today.
Welcome, Tamzen.
Thanks.
We usually kick off with our guests by asking them to do the very cringy and eternally awkward and we're sorry, not sorry in advance task of reading your own bio. So
already feeling awkward about it.
Can you kick us off?
Oh, this is really awkward actually. You even pre-warned me that this is going to happen. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll figure it out. But no, this feels very awkward.
I mean, we've taken a tangent. We've gone to some dark places already.
You can only go up from sus anal bum party.
True. So we're on the up and up. This is a one that I've used in the last few times I've needed a bio.
Yep.
So, oh, this is so
Jump in
weird.
there, girl.
Tamzen is a trained actress and untrained writer working around Naarm, Melbourne. For the past few years, she has been exploring working with words that she's been too afraid to speak through her solo show, Said Motel. Said Motel premiered at the Melbourne Writers' Festival in 2019 and went on to tour Victoria with OK Motels and Melbourne Fringe Festival. Other performance credits include 80 Minutes No Interval at TheatreWorks, All of My Friends Were There at TheatreWorks, We Are Not Real People, the web series, and then TV shows like Winners and Losers, The Dr. Blake Mysteries. When she isn't performing, she is untangling her cat's fur or moving props around on reality TV sets.
That's a really lovely bio.
Feels so embarrassing.
Oh, but I know it is. It's always gross. We had to do it recently on another podcast. We're like, this is what we put people through every week.
Someone else made you do it? That's amazing.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it did suck. So we're here for you. We understand.
All right, great.
But that's beautifully written though for an untrained writer.
Thank you.
Assuming that you wrote it yourself. And it's always very interesting to see the difference. Like even like my own bio has been quite like there was not a lot of personality in it. So I always love to hear when people do bring an element of personality and kind of art to how they write their bio. So I think
that's nice. I feel like it's pretty boring, but that's really nice. When you just read the same thing and you know your credits and and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so ugh. But that's nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
How does it work as an actress, or just that idea of performance, right? Because like a bio is, of course, like it's a performative version of ourselves. And so much of your career is performing and finding a way to be comfortable, obviously sharing select parts of yourself. Could you just talk a bit more about like, why is reading a bio uncomfortable, but performing in front of hundreds of people is fine?
That's so interesting. And I think it's purely because when you're performing, you feel like this is going to sound so, I'm on the right podcast to talk about it, but it's going to sound so impostery, but you're there for a reason and you have a job and you have to communicate like a thing, and it's kind of not you. Like you're standing on the stage and you have to connect with someone or, deliver that line or get through this scene, and it always has a purpose. It always has a goal, and that's what you're focusing on. You're not focusing on like, oh, I'm on a stage and I'm being me, because you're not. Even in my show that I do, which is all real and it's all my own stories, it still feels like it's not fully me. You're able to kind of put on the costume or the lights turn on, and you feel like you can hide behind something, whereas that feels very exposing and weird. And bios are so strange. Like you learn to write them in drama school, you learn what you need to have in them. And then the further I've moved away from that training or like just live, the more I feel like I'm freer to just put what I want on there. I mean, not completely, but
it's an interesting thing when there are these formulas that we know exist, but we still follow them. It's the same with like even like school essays or grant writing. It's like you can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't write your grant application in the like very specific formula that it needs to be written outside of just, ticking off selection criteria, it's not going to get through, which I always found quite sad.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Yeah. Grant writing is so hard.
It sucks. I'm very glad not to have that in my life anymore. I worked for a nonprofit for a number of years and did a lot of grant writing, and I think that, I guess it's sort of like I felt so disheartened by the fact that it's like, this feels like school to me again. It's in like, like once you get to understand like what the key is that unlocks the thing, you're like, it's actually got nothing to do with having the best idea.
It's like trying to put creativity in a box, like it's trying to make creativity uncreative to tick boxes.
Yeah.
And it feels so disconnected from what the actual work is. It's really, I don't know, it feels yuck.
Yeah.
I think it's also sad because in my mind, there's a human being on the other side of that deciding whether they're going to stamp approved or disapproved on it. And I also don't think that they like it. I think they're scared in their way of fucking up their quota or pissing off their boss. So they're also playing it safe. Like everyone's participating in the dance of what this document is supposed to look like. No one enjoys writing it. I can't imagine that people enjoy reading it, but it's just like somewhere along the line that was the agreament.
Yeah. I know,
and now we're all stuck.
How nice would it be if it was just like a show and tell, just however you want to present. Let's all sit in a circle, like I've made a PowerPoint presentation. Like,
I like that is such a theatre kid thing. I'm like,
I remember in high school I did for a science project. I have no idea. Oh, no, it was about the digestive system. I'm about to say I have no idea what it's about, but I do. But I made it in like stop motion with clay things. And I'm quite sure that like the content-wise it was like whatever, but my teacher was like,
amazing.
A+. I mean, this was entertaining.
You get the grant.
So if we could just do that in adult life, that would be awesome.
What did you claymate?
I think it was like a marshmallow going through the digestive tract.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Stop everything.
Yeah.
I can't promise you it was good.
No, but that's how you want to learn about the human body. Like that's interesting.
So
that makes it fun.
Yeah. It's going back to acting for a bit because I find this I find actors to be amazing, and it's something that my husband Dan and I talk about quite a bit because he's a film editor and he's very enamored by movies as a storytelling device. It's something that just like lights him up from the inside out. And talking about how like there's a reason why we have movie stars. There's a reason why actors are some of the most revered people that we have in the world. Some of it is because they're very hot. I'll give you that. But story is so important. Like it's always been such an important part of the human experience that there's this kind of interesting dichotomy where it can almost be seen as like a frivolous path to follow. I imagine like if you had very serious parents who wanted you to be a lawyer or whatever, to say like, Mum, I want to be an actor, could potentially be a difficult conversation. But that same person probably also has had many movies in their lives that have profoundly changed them in some way.
Totally.
So I guess there's a couple of things, like I guess your sort of personal experience of that, you know, storytelling through acting. And I'm also interested in, you know, talking about how compared to reading your bio, that feels safe because you get to put the mask or whatever on. Maybe I'll start with this question actually rather than just like I'm going to ask you 16 questions all in once and then you can choose which one you're going to answer. Has that always felt like that for you as an actress, that it's felt safe there?
Yeah.
Or is that something you've learned over time? It has always felt that way.
Always felt safe, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's bizarre. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from, but it's just always felt like that's a safe place. It's play. It's like you're up there with your friends and you're just playing. And I don't know why it's so important to me. Like if I don't do it for a while, sorry, I touched the microphone.
How dare you?
I know. I feel like something's missing. I feel like I've lost something. I need to be in that space with people, creating a thing and telling stories and using our own life and our own stories, but connecting with these made up creations. And there's something about bringing people along on a journey into your imagination in a way that is just so fun.
Yeah.
And it's so special because it's so rare to be able to do that. And I think that's what artists get to do, and that's so cool. It's like, hey, here's the thing, I made it. Like, come and look at it, and like, it's going to tell you a story. And whatever your medium is, I think we all kind of do that.
Yeah, we spoke just recently actually about the idea of creating worlds and how like that's something. So Alice and I are both illustrators, and like wanting to so desperately to reconnect with this feeling that we had as kids, like drawing characters or making things when you haven't learnt to judge your work yet, but you're just creating these little worlds to live in. And to me and to Alice, those like places and characters were real. We were creating life with the things that we drew. So I imagine
it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing.
Do you ever miss characters that you've played previously and then just when you're home alone, like act that character a little bit?
That's a great question.
I've never done that, but I do. There's definitely characters that I have really enjoyed playing, and then, you know, we'll think like, oh, it was cool when I got to do that thing and I got to die, or I got to have that little love story in that time. But no, I've never acted them out by myself. That's really cute though.
Because it's I just was thinking about it. I'm like, your career is amazing, and like the craft of being an actor, which is one of the most ancient crafts that exist. It's like there is something very mystical about that. It's like you can summon like a person that's not here now, but you could make them here.
You make it up. You just make it up.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's just play. And I think like when you're younger and you're just playing with your friends and making little stories or putting on little shows with parents, or just in the garden by yourself, I don't know what world you go into as a little kid. It's just the same thing, except the stories that you're trying to tell as an adult are more connected and more grounded with the experiences that you've had or with feelings you need to figure out within yourself, and you know that they're universal feelings and you just have more in you to kind of untangle than you do as a child, I think. But I think they're both just as important.
How does it feel? Sorry, I keep coming in 2 seconds.
No, we've got too many questions.
I know. I was wondering, so when you read your bio, you had a list of productions that you've performed in, some that you've written, and then you spoke about how your work now is in the world of reality TV, which is, I mean, that's
With
its
my
own thing.
like my day job, yeah.
So how do you balance being on both sides of performing? And is that a thing that you feel, does your work in the kind of production side of things serve your acting career as well, or is it what is the tension between those?
It's really hard. It's a hard balance, but I work in reality TV purely because I loved art department. I always have. Every time I've created any sort of show or web series or whatever I've made in my acting life, when I've been the creator of the thing, has been visual. Like, I think I'm a visual thinker before anything else. So I always see the set, or I see the character, or I see their bedroom, and that's how I develop something. So I find art department really important, and I find for the way I create anyway. So I don't know, I worked in hospitality for a really long time and it drained me and I hated it. But I wanted to work in this industry so badly. I was like, art department is the place I could see myself, and a place that I know that I have some skill in, because I feel like I've done it for myself and for productions that I've made for so long. And I figured out my little way to get into it. And I just want to do reality because there's no actors there. There's no one there. I'm nervous that if I worked in a show where there was actors, I'm nervous of ever feeling jealous. Like, it's such a thing that I don't like.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be at work having that feel. I just want to be at work and have a good time and encourage everyone around me and be a team and like make a thing and be really proud of it. And there's a part of me that is scared to do what I do when there's actors there, because I would hate to find myself in a position where I'm not supporting someone or I'm feeling weird towards them. So I'm just like, I'm just not going to even put myself anywhere near that, just in case.
What is a smart and self-aware choice to be able to make? Because I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily see that or think like, I don't know. Anyway, I just think that's very smart because there are so many reality TV shows that you can work on. If that's what's going to make you feel best, why? Like, you can build your career.
Yeah.
It's also such a beautiful thing to share. I feel like so many people, you know, in a way, I find that incredibly relatable. It's why I would never work in an art gallery, for example, for exactly the same. And the way you phrased that was so powerful. I would be scared of the version of me that it might bring out. And maybe there's a chance that, I mean, there's a version of events, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I'm like, maybe, hopefully at some point I would have matured beyond that.
And it'd be fine.
And maybe it would be totally fine. But I am so scared of testing that. I'm like, I just don't even want to know. Let's just not even go, let's not open that box. Let's not play with those toys. Don't need to.
And so many people ask, because I work with so many people, not everyone is strictly reality TV. Like, yes, they work a lot in the industry, but some of them have come from drama. Like, I work with a lot of people that have just finished up on like the Newsreader or Warnie, like things that have filmed here. And they're like, you should come to the next. I just be like, no, happy in my reality bubble. So happy. I'm chilling. Like, I'm good.
You sort of touched on it before, but I had not actually ever thought about this before, like the order in which things happen when it comes to set dressing and characters. So I guess this is taking a step out of reality for a minute.
That's fine.
Or maybe not. I don't know.
No, it's all good.
But what is the order in which things happen? Because you were saying that you sort of feel you can step into a character when you sort of know what their room is like, their space is like. Does that usually happen first on a production, or do you sort of work out who the character is and work backwards, or is it a constant like feedback loop between the two?
I mean, it's totally different for who you're working. It's totally different. I guess in scripted dramas and stuff, it comes to the writer is the first person to create the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes they do see it, I suppose, because it's in the script and it's there visually what things look like, and then other times it's not. So everyone is so different, but I know for myself, I definitely see it first. Like I know I want to do a production if I can see, if I see it. I can't, it's so hard to explain, but I had, it sounds, I don't know, I'm just going to say it. But years ago, I had this just thought, I guess. It wasn't a dream and it wasn't me like having a vision, but I had always thought about this play I did in high school a million years ago. And I always thought the text was beautiful. It's this play about all of the Greek stories and all of these Greek myths. And it never left my head because I think back then I was like, I just wish we could have done this better. I love this script and we did what we could with it as high school kids. And then I got older and I had this like scene of a giant cloud and these around a pool. And I was like, this giant cloud around the pool and I could see 3 characters and I was like, I want to make that. And I know the script that would work for, but it has to look like that. It has to be a giant cloud around a pool. Otherwise, I don't want anything to do with it.
It's cloud or bust.
I've already made the version of this without the cloud in the pool.
It's like I can see it in my head. That's what it's going to look like. And then I went together. Then I went along and found all the people, found the script, like cast it, made it happen, and was like, but I know exactly what it needs to look like for me to be excited about it.
Wow.
I don't know why. I don't know if that's normal. I'm sure a lot of other people do think like that, but I don't think it's everyone. I think everyone comes different angles for sure.
You know, some people don't think visually, like as in like they don't see pictures.
I have heard
doesn't that fucking freak you out?
So weird.
And some people have no inner monologue, like no narrator.
Yeah.
I have a very strong cunt of a narrator.
So do I.
There's not a lot of gap between my narrator and my mouth. It's just all happening.
That's good. That's good.
It is good. But doesn't that blew, I literally have been walking around the earth for most of my life, not even questioning that
everyone thinks the same.
Yeah. That's right. And in hindsight, that is kind of silly to think with our brains and all of their like infinite nuance and glory that everyone would think in the same way. But yeah, I had no idea. Anyway, sidebar.
No, because I heard that, I don't know, like maybe 6 months ago or something, like somewhere in the last few months as well, and blew my mind. And then I was Googling it and asking all my friends, like, but it's bizarre.
We have a friend who's an illustrator who is like that. I'm like, how then do you get the pictures from your head onto the page? I don't understand it. Yeah.
Can they dream?
Hang on.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
But maybe,
I don't know. We'll have to get him on the podcast and ask him.
Maybe he draws his way to the thing. Like, do you ever have that thing of like writing your way to understanding what you think, or talking, having a conversation where like actually the thinking is happening outside of your skull, kind of between you and some other, between you and something else, whether it's a person or a page or something.
Definitely. I think that happens when the inside is too loud. Like when there's so many voices in there, I always go to the page.
Are you
or a person?
So how did you phrase it in your bio? An untrained writer?
Yeah, it says trained actress, untrained writer.
Untrained writer.
Yes.
So how has writing become part of your creative practice? Like what does that look like for you?
It kind of always has been, but I am just very self-conscious about it, I think.
Is it like people not wanting to call themselves an artist, or not wanting to overstate a thing, I
think that's why I say it. Yeah, because I would hate that to write something for someone and then be like, you have no grammar ability. Why do you call yourself a writer? I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
I think it's one of those verbs though, and I don't know. This is something I've come to later in my elderly years,
your twilight years,
post 30. But it's like you get to call yourself. It's it's a adjective that is related to a verb. And if you do the verb, you get the adjective. If you write, you're a writer. You know,
Yeah, somebody calling yourself a doctor.
Yeah. I was like, or someone who went to grad school and has an MFA in creative writing but doesn't write is not a writer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right?
Yeah, that's
They're not fucking
really
writing. They're not a writer. If
interesting.
you're writing every day like that, that's the thing. But do you have like a journaling kind of practice? Do you write, if you're writing a script, like how do you write a script? Do you start with a description of a person and then find a story? Like what does that look like?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually. And that might not be an interesting answer, but it totally changes from depending on what I'm doing. So I do journal, not like every day. I don't have rules around it. I think if I had rules around it, it wouldn't be as fun. But I've kept all of my diaries since high school. I've got so many of them. But, you know, they have big chunks where I haven't written anything. And then I go through phases and I write all the time. And they're also full of like trinkets and letters and whatever. So they like line my bookshelf. And that's one of like weirdly my really favorite things that I have in my house. You know, when people say like, what would you save from a fire? Like not including your pets. That I would get all of them. Not that I want anyone to read them, not that I think they're valuable in any way, but there's something about them that help me understand who I am or like prove to myself that I've existed. I don't know. Yeah. It's really weird. I look at them and I go, oh yeah, okay, that happened. That was a whole period of time. And I can flick back and I go, oh yeah, that's how I felt about that situation. The show that I'm doing at the moment that I've been doing for like 4 years now, it's called Said Motel. And it's the premise is, what would you say if you were in a motel room in the middle of nowhere and you invited a bunch of people from your past? So mine is like 12 people from my past into this motel room and I tell them all of the things that I was never able to back then in the moment. And I do that to an audience and I pretend the audience members are these people from my past. But having those diaries really helped because I went back and I really did look at the things that I was writing that I wasn't saying.
It's an incredible concept. How does it feel? I mean, in the beginning of that process, you've got like this catharsis, I would imagine, this facing of things. But 4 years later, having those conversations, like what is that like, going onto stage and like digging up things again and again?
Yeah, it's
in public?
Exhausting, but it's great. And it's less about me now. It's way more about the audience because the things that I get from people afterwards are so beautiful. The things that people say and the things that people write. So the other part of this show is I have a little booth. It's like a one-person kind of booth. It has a little writing desk and people write their own things that they've never said out loud and they post them to me in a little box. So I've got them all. I've been collecting them for 4 years. They've come through all different, whether they've come through the booth, they've come through emails, they've come through like physical letters because I did I sent my address out at one point and got sent out letter kits to people and they just came back. They're all anonymous. But the things that I get back after the show are so special. And I don't know, it's just so much more about the audience than it is about me. But it is really scary because people are very aware that these are real and it's all my stories when they come into the show. So it always feels a little bit nervous, a little bit like, you know, you're about to show a lot of yourself and things that are hard to say, a lot of things that are really hard to say, but I really feel good now in the fact that they're universal, as specific as they are story-wise, as specific as these people are to me. These feelings are universal. These feelings really hit home with people. And maybe not every single story, but everyone from the audience will connect with at least one of them. And a lot of these people will tell me, they'll be like, that fourth person that that was me. You just told my story up there. That's exactly what I went through. Or, you know, I felt for you. And I have audience members crying. I have audience members laughing. It's wild. The response is so like generous and there's such a connection in that room when I do it. And it's bizarre. It's bizarre and it's really nice. So I don't know. I think that's another reason why I feel safe on stage because it's not about me. You have to make it about them. It's not about me. And the bio, that's about me. For the people looking at me and being like, we want to know about you. But the stage isn't that. It's not about you at all.
Yeah. And I think, you know, generosity breeds generosity, right? So I can imagine because you're giving something so generously of yourself, that would be why you receive it in return. But so 4 years of doing this show, they're real stories and real people. Have any of the people from the stories ever been to the shows?
Yes.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, totally.
What happened?
I didn't know he was coming.
Yeah.
And I was doing the show, and it's pretty intimate. It wouldn't work in a big venue. It wouldn't work with a big audience. I need at least 12 people, but the audience is kind of normally around 20, and that's good because that still means that people who don't want me to make direct eye contact at them can hide. They have space. They
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want it to feel safe.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was sitting not in the very front, like not in my direct eye line, but just there. And it was really scary, actually, because I was saying all this stuff and I almost decided to change, stop looking at the audience member and actually look directly at him. And I didn't do it. And I asked my director afterwards, and I was like, should I have done that? Like, is that what you would have wanted? And she said no. So I did the right thing, which is good. But it was bizarre.
Sorry to cut in, but just to check, so you were aware in real time that he was, did you know before, or did you literally
I discovered
you were
it
performing
when I was
and you
performing.
saw him?
Wow, that's full on.
Yeah.
And you had the presence of mind. Yeah. So your call was that it would have meant changing
the direction,
the character, like the imaginative, because no one else knows that he's there.
Totally. Yeah.
I think that is so brave in real time. You just
But I didn't change. I just kept talking to the other person.
Yeah.
And thank goodness this person who came in, I only have good things to say. Like, he's a great person. I'm not saying anything, not that I'm super nasty, but I definitely talk about some bad stuff that's happened with people for sure. But it is all very anonymous. So as you said, no one else would know that person's there. But they know. And I could tell he was knew I was talking about us.
Yeah.
But it was fine in the end. As soon as the show ended, I ran out the front and I looked for him because I felt like I just needed to be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Is this okay? But he'd gone out for dinner and he messaged me. He was like, that was great. I was like, can you please tell me more? Like, like that's not enough right now. Like, I'm like sweating. I am stressed. I cannot hold conversation with anyone else who's trying to talk to me. Like, you have to tell me how you are feeling. And he was just like, no, it was really great. And he's like, I want to talk to you about this more on another day.
But not in front of a room full of 20 strangers.
Maybe.
And did you? Sorry, go on.
No, no, that hasn't happened. And that's I'm okay with that. That's fine. But he did say one really sweet thing he said was like, even if you'd ripped me to shreds up there, I still would have enjoyed the show. I was like, okay. That's nice.
That's very sweet.
Good. That's the like the timeout 5-star pull quote.
Oh my gosh, I should find that text message actually. That would be great. That might actually be my favorite. Okay.
Favorite review of all time.
Yeah. It's the only like super personal one. So maybe that.
It's such a beautiful it's such a beautiful concept. You mentioned in that as part of that story, talking to your director about the decision that you made. I'm interested in the dynamic of working with a director generally because I know nothing about it, but also like specifically to this when you're working on something that is so personal, like literally your personal stories. What's that relationship dynamic?
She knows
like?
Everything about me.
Okay, like,
she has to do. Like her just seeing the page and seeing these unnamed characters and all these stories, she was like, cool, we're going to get deeper with these. Doesn't have to be on the page, but between you and I and in this space, I need to know everything. I'm going to give you exercises. And she ended up making me write a letter to all of these people that I talked to. and go even deeper into things that I've never said and talk about the past, the future, things if they were in front of me. Like these letters are like a lot more than I was even thinking about when I was writing the show. And that really helped. That helped solidify things that I didn't even know was there. And yeah, it really, I don't know, it brought something extra to the show and in my performance, I think. Even though no one needs to know any of that, that's fine. It just like added a whole other layer. And a part of the show got rewritten because of it. And it changed. I'm talking to someone, but in my letter, when I was writing about this story and writing about other stuff, I ended up talking about another person and how this other person really impacted my relationship and really impacted how I felt. And it was a work relationship I was having with someone I worked with. It was probably not okay. And I got fired because of it. This other person fired me. And she was like, that's the real person that you're angry at. You don't care about this guy. Like, you should write about that. That's more interesting.
Wow.
Or like it's more tied in. So there's like a whole other part of the show now because it came through just in conversations with her and in writing letters.
There must be such a dynamic of trust for you and this person because, you know, likewise, like what Jess was saying, to that point, as people who are on the outside of that world, right? We get to watch productions that people make, but the idea of a self-written, self-performed show that is directed by someone that is not you, to me as the layman on the outside, I'm like, but how can anyone tell you how to perform you? But clearly it is better. You've got a set of outside eyes, but like, how did you find someone that you trust this much? And how do you hold back when they give you feedback that you don't agree with?
Because it's not about me. This is the part that makes it acting and not me just having like a moment with myself on stage, or like in acting school you call it like wanking on stage, when it's purely just for yourself. It's not about
a lot of that
audience.
in art school too.
That's it. But it's like, then it's not, you're not connecting with anyone else. You don't need anyone else to do that. And that's not interesting for anyone to watch. You want to be connected with. So I have to have a director. I don't trust that if I didn't have a director and I was just doing this alone and solo without that other set of eyes, without someone thinking about the people out there who I'm actually trying to connect with, I think it would be too insular. I think I would get too carried away in my own stuff and forget that, no, there's people out there. Like having a director, having a person being like, cool, like, but make it about this person. Talk to me out here. I'm out here. Connect with me. I'm your eye line. It's not about you, basically. That's what makes it interesting. That's what people want to watch. People don't come to the theatre and go, I just want to watch someone having a private moment that feels awkward, like I'm being too voyeuristic. Like they want to go to the theatre and feel something.
There needs to be that like enough space where people can, even though they know it's a personal story, have potential to see themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like with I don't know if you ever had this with like a favorite song and then you find out what it's about specifically and it kind of ruins it for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not about you anymore. You're like, no, wrong. That's about my ex-boyfriend I had when I was 16.
That's
Coldplay.
That's totally it. That's totally it. People want to see themselves reflected in art. That's the way that they learn. That's the way that they feel like they can get something out of it. And I don't know, we want to connect with people. We want to help people out of their own tough situations or give them some escapism for an hour or maybe teach them something about themselves or make them question something that they didn't question before. And the only way to do that is make it about them. Not that you're standing there up on stage and saying like, this is a story about your grandma.
Yeah.
You're just doing the show, but it's the intention behind everything.
Yeah. It is quite a like nuanced fine line to dance on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which I guess is why you need a director.
Yeah.
If only there was someone who can help us.
Yeah. it's funny, and this is going to sound incredibly dumb, but it's occurring to me now as we have this conversation that I have not been entirely sure exactly what a director does.
I feel that way about producers. To this day, I don't fully, I'm like, they make stuff happen.
Yeah, they make stuff happen.
Yeah.
They're very important.
Organized things.
They do a lot.
I don't know. It's just like one of those things, like I feel like I have a sense for what it is. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm still not 100% sure because it would be different, right, from like stage to TV to movie. The role of a director would be quite different.
The role of the director and like the word producer, depending on what you're talking about, is so different. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I segue elegantly, flawlessly segue this into asking you about reality TV?
Of course, yeah.
So you said, and again, this is one of those, part of why I love this podcast is sometimes it's just someone's phrasing of a sentence that is saying a thing that you kind of knew before, but like it lands in a very unexpected and different way. And you said how when you work in reality TV, part of the reason that you enjoy that and choose that work is that you're not working with actors, you're working with people, just civilians, right? And I would be so interested to know what it is like working with non-actors in like a very high pressure environment that people, I mean, would usually get trained for, right? But now they don't. But at the same time, they have also watched TV their entire lives. So they're not unaware of certain tropes and certain that someone's going to be cast as the bad guy, right? Someone's going to be cast as that whatever. So like, what is it like?
So some of them aren't actually aware of that. Some of them can't see that. And I have been really fortunate to work on quite a lot of TV shows that don't do that. Like lovely TV shows that just want people to do well. Like MasterChef is the perfect example of that. Lego Masters is another beautiful example of that.
I'm so obsessed with Lego Masters right now.
We were literally talking about it yesterday.
I love it so much.
Yeah. So it's, you know, they're not looking for villains on those shows. They're looking for contestants to have fun and really like push themselves and show how creative they can be. And that's a really nice show to work on, you know, when you actually see the contestants grow and get more confident in front of the camera. And I love it. I really love contestants. I don't know if everyone feels the same way. And I know there's a weird stigma around reality TV. I know there was definitely a few years back, that it might be shaken off a little bit now, that, you know, reality TV is very lowbrow, which is fine. You can think that, whatever. But I don't see it like that. And I definitely don't see it like that anymore. There's amazing people that are working and making these happen. And I really like contestants. They're really sweet. They're really genuine. They're on it because especially the shows that I've worked on so far, like they're on it because they really love a thing. Like people on MasterChef just really love cooking, and that's so nice. Like they just love it. And then they're really excited at like I was talking to an ex-contestant on a show from a long time ago the other day, and they were just saying how nice it is that they can still get enjoyment from a thing that they were doing on the show, and how cool it is that people replicate things that they did on the show. Like they make a meal and they'll still hear like, oh, I copied this from that season. How special that is.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really sweet. You're just like showcasing everyday people that love a thing, and they get to broadcast how much they love that thing to a wide network of people. I don't know. Just the simplicity of that I find really charming and really nice.
Yeah.
But I also feel, because I am an actor and because I've spent time in front of the camera and because I know how to feel comfortable in that environment, I also feel like I'm not to like toot my own horn or anything, but I really like talking to contestants when they're feeling nervous about that stuff, because I feel like I can help them calm down a little bit. And I like that. It's really not like, I don't know. I just have the contestants that I have had good bonds with, and I just feel like we've had nice times. I'm not explaining this very well because it's very hard to talk about things that you kind of can't talk about, but you kind of can.
Yeah.
But yes, there's definitely contestants that I've bonded with over the years, and I feel like it's a really nice dynamic to have when you get to watch someone when they're filming, they're doing a thing, and you're just like really rooting for them, and you're watching them do a thing live, and it's not scripted, and they're just competing but just having a good time, and you're on the side. It's like sport. I think maybe that's how I feel. I feel like I'm watching sport. I feel like there's sports fans out there that's what they do when they watch their favorite players just like kicking a goal, and I think that's what reality TV is for a lot of people that don't get into sports.
That's how I feel about Drag Race.
Yes,
this is my
totally.
football, guys. Yeah.
Totally.
It has been really interesting, I think, to see how perceptions, I definitely think it's changed over the last few years, and it might just be because there is so much of it now that there is within reality TV as a genre. There's a plethora of different types of it, of different heights of brow.
And also different like interests.
Yes, yeah,
It's
exactly.
not all dating shows. It's not all, well, let's just watch this family dynamic living their life. It's actually, there's so many different, you could be interested in anything and find a reality TV show for it now.
Absolutely. And I think there are a lot more that sort of, those things that are about cooking or sewing or makeup or just tell you what I have been watching on binge in the last week. It does seem a lot kinder. Like it's not, they're not doing the thing of like who's going to be the villain, who's going to, be the
I mean, that still happens, obviously. We all know that's still a thing. That's still definitely a part of the reality TV landscape.
The fuck out of it.
Yeah.
I will absolutely enjoy that. I know that it's terrible, but I love it. But it is nice, the versions of that where it's just watching people who are into stuff.
Yeah, watching
be into stuff.
How
so
cool are people
nice.
that are passionate about stuff? Aren't
the
they the best?
best.
Yeah.
That is truly, we've had this conversation many times. We get so excited about this, but like one of the most beautiful things on earth is a person loving the thing that they love.
I agree.
It doesn't, the thing itself is completely irrelevant. Like you mentioned Lego Masters. It is truly the joy in my world from Lego Masters is wild. Like I 2 nights ago was sitting with my partner. We got takeaway and Lego Masters, and that was our Sunday night. And at some point I turned to him and I was like, I can tell you with 100% certainty, there is no one happier in Melbourne right now. This is it. This is all you need is Lego Masters and some paneer makhni, right? Like that's the thing.
I worked on Lego Masters for 2 seasons, and it was just it was the best. It was so much fun.
I don't know how much you are or sort of aren't allowed to discuss, but like what would you be doing on a set like that?
So I can totally talk about these because my seasons have aired, gone, happened. So for Lego, I worked in Challenge, which is sometimes it's a really blurry line between Challenge department and art department. And Lego Masters, the line was blurred, but not too blurry. Basically, anything that was made out of Lego was Challenge team. Anything that was not made out of Lego on the art side of things was art department. So, for example, art team would do, what's a really good example? We did the season I was on. Oh my gosh, I keep touching the microphone.
It doesn't
It's because I keep using my hands.
Be animated. We love it.
Old video games. So the contestants had to. Sorry, I'm
No, you're fine.
very handsy.
I shall move it for you. We love a handsy guest. There you go.
Old video games. So you built a Lego scene inside of an old video game console, like the ones that you'd see in an arcade.
So fun.
So art team made all these beautiful consoles, kind of in the style of like Pac-Man vibes with the little controls down the bottom.
Sick.
So art team made all them, whereas Challenge we would do the testing. So I was in the testing team. So I would basically pretend I was a contestant. So me and my work partner in this, our boss would be like, "You've got 12 hours. This is your challenge. Go."
No way. That was your job.
Yeah, that was part of my job. That was a big part of my job. Just like being a contestant, just off camera.
That is so fun.
So we'd do that. And then if you ever see anything made out of Lego that's on the set. So when I worked on the Marvel series, for example. So when they go, oh, this is the Marvel room, and they open it and it's all these Marvel props made out of Legos, that was us. So I made like the shield and the
I have literally wondered
hammer.
about this, but surely they have to get the professionals to, I'm not questioning your Lego abilities.
No. You can definitely question my Lego abilities.
I'm like, thank you for coming on our podcast. What the fuck?
No, it's fine.
No, but I guess just in my mind, like I'm not a big Lego person. I've just fallen in love with this show because it is so wholesome. It is the most just rooting for good people who love a thing. It is so life affirming. So I don't know, but I just imagine because there's kind of Brickman, who's the big Lego expert. Whenever there's a complex build example, I was like, surely they, I don't know, fly in the experts to make that, or like
so we actually
ship that from
have
headquarters.
Experts on our team. So there's 2 of them who are professional Lego builders on the challenge team. So there's like 2 of them, and then my boss, who's just reality TV challenge world. So he's incredible. He does like a lot of the big TV shows with really complex challenges and comes up with those. And that's very cool. He's very cool to work with. And then, 2 of us that are just reality TV people. And then we have the Lego people. And it's cool, like learning from them, working with them. And they do all the designs, like the Lego designs, which are done on computer and very mathematical. And then you build from those designs. If you're trying to make something like recreate something like Thor's hammer, which I had to do part of, like you are following a guide and you have professionals there. Cool. But then when we do the like contestant challenge, like when we do the challenge testing, that's just more creative and you're just, trying to make a minifig world or something, and it's fun. But I have, I was kind of in the little team working with a professional and then me who's not a professional. So I think together we made like a pretty normal standard team that would go on the show. Yes. Like our abilities kind of melded together to make a normal person. One
full human. Yeah.
That is so cool.
But it's cool.
It is cool. So a challenge team is a thing that is on reality TV shows a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a very normal, very cool team. I really like it over there in Challenge. It's a cool place.
I mean, of course, like someone has to do that.
Yeah,
but, how fun.
Yeah. So that's where the idea, like challenge ideas definitely come from executives and producers, and that's things that have big meetings about, and then it kind of filters down to the team, and then it's workshopped and played with and make sure it works. Yeah. That's kind of what that team will do. So there is lots of testing. So I don't know, I haven't worked on Survivor, but I'm sure the Challenge Survivor team are out there in the bush, like jumping over logs and standing on things. And but yes.
Are there any
Lego?
Are there any kind of fundamental principles that make a challenge good?
It depends on the outcome that you want. So I guess when we do challenge testing on Lego Masters, for example, and The Block is where I did that as well. Not that I build houses. The challenge team on The Block is the team that takes them away from the house for the day, and they'll go like kayaking in a river, or they'll build furniture out of an old boat, or they'll like find, it's like it's not the painting a bathroom stuff. That's like a different side of it. But if you're doing the testing, so Lego is a really good example for this. You have 6 hours, you have to build a house or something that flies, or something that can be held up in the air by balloons or whatever. You do the test, and then executives and producers come in and they look at it and they go, cool, that's how long that took you. What was the problems here? Like, let's work out if this is an example of something that we want to see on the show. Like, maybe this doesn't work. Maybe this is too much time. Maybe this is not enough time, or maybe the instructions aren't clear, and they'll go, actually, what we wanted to see was something with more color. Why did you think it couldn't have that much color? Or why did you think it needed to be this scale? We actually want to see, like, when we said house, we actually meant 4 houses. Or when we said like the word like living, we actually wanted to see something. It's the way things are worded. And then you will probably test it again after a new challenge brief is written, and you just, until it kind of irons out, and they come and they look at what you've done and they've gone, oh yeah, that's something like that is what we want to see them do. So then it gets signed off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So cool. I want to be on a challenge.
I'm done. No further questions. I want to go home and watch Lego Masters. So cool.
Yeah, but that happens across TV. So unfortunately, not all shows have the testing time. So some shows are made a lot quicker. So they might not get the testing time, but hopefully, they've pulled challenges from other things, or they know something's going to work and they might not need the time for it. But that's kind of okay. Whereas something like MasterChef, they're not really called there is a challenge team, but it's mainly the food team that does all the challenge kind of testing, because they're chefs and they're set up and they have a big kitchen and they test and they cook day in and day out. They're making all the pressure tests. They're doing all the, what could you cook with this mystery box? They're coming up with lots of ideas, and then same thing, like it's practiced and it's tested and made sure it works in the amount of time, make sure we've got all the stuff in the pantry and get signed off. And it's like, yep, this is what we want to see on the show, something like this. Whether or not the contestants do anything like that in the end is up to the show, and that's, that's fine. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, it all gets tested again and again.
Fascinating.
There's a lot of people that work in the industry like making sure this stuff happens. So, and they're all amazing.
It sounds so fun, like literally the funnest job ever. This is a slightly tenuous thread, but I want to pull it, so I'm going to.
Yeah.
Because I'll make the rules. Something that I've become increasingly interested in, just as a topic in general with people, particularly with artists, but people in general, is the idea of legacy. And it sort of came, why I say it's a tenuous thread, like talking about contestants. They're not going on MasterChef to build a legacy for themselves necessarily, right? But for some people, that has been an unintended consequence where they see years later someone still mentioning the work that they did or inspired by how they approached a challenge or a meal that they cooked.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in it for you personally, as someone who you've said a lot of times that, you feel safe on stage because it's not about you, the shows are not about you, a lot of things not being about you. So how then, is legacy something that you think about? Because it can be looked at from two viewpoints, I think. Obviously, some of it is the impact that you leave on people, which obviously is very important to you. And then some of it is just I just want people to know my name after I'm dead. And they're sort of they're two sides of the same coin, really. So it's not necessarily, anyway, I'm rambling now, but I'm interested in that, if that's something you think about or have thought about.
I mean, it's definitely a thing that you think about, especially when you go to, when you go to acting school, when you study. And I studied in New York before I came and studied back here. And the school I studied at in New York is a legacy school. It's like Lee Strasberg. It's an institution. It's like it's where Marilyn Monroe went. It's changed its name and it's changed a little bit, but you walk through those corridors there and there's headshots of all of the famous actors you could imagine, lining the walls from when they went there, when they were younger, and there are all these old black and white photos. And that school carries that in its bones, and it's really, you can't not think about that when you go to places like that. And you sit in classes and you're just hearing stories about who went, a lot of the teachers have been there for years and they're just telling you stories about these other actors, or they're just telling you the history of the school and the history of theatre and the history of acting and why it's important. And it is it's all legacy. Storytelling is legacy. It comes from stories being retold and morphing over time and then turning into humans being able to write them down and what that means and where that goes. Now, all of our older stories have history, which carries a weight. And I don't know, legacy is important. It's very important, but I don't know if it's worth the weight on individuals sometimes. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a lot, when, especially this is so specific to America and it's so specific to that my history going there to that place. And I remember when I met Lee Strasberg was Marilyn Monroe's acting teacher, and his wife is still alive, and she runs the school, and she shook my hand, and I just remember being like just 18 and her shaking, and I was just like, I remember being like, she owns Marilyn Monroe's estate. Like it was left to her and her husband, and he's gone and she owns it now.
Wow.
And that's all I thought about for like the rest of the day. And it was amazing and really special. But then you see the other side of that and you walk through Times Square and you're just like, it's just her face is repeated on everything, like mugs and coffee cups and tea towels. And you're like, it's weird. It's weird. It doesn't feel the real thing. Like her being at that school and meeting that is such a different thing to the public just liking an image of her.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know that's me. When you say the word legacy, I know that's not what you were talking about. I'm not sitting here being like, I think I'm Marilyn Monroe. I don't.
Well, I think it's all kind of
But
parts. That's why it's an interesting topic.
But it's just an interesting word, and it comes with such like gravity to it, and like what that means for different people and how you see it reflected in the world. And I just think if you spend your life wanting a legacy, I don't know how much of life you're actually living, because you're not living for the right reason potentially, or not living for, like, you're living for an outcome. You can't predict an outcome. You can't write an outcome. You can't work to, like, that could be anything. You don't get to decide that. Someone else is going to decide if they want to put your face on a tea towel in 100 years. Like you can't decide that.
And you'll never know.
Totally. But that's not to say I don't think it's wrong to want to leave something behind. But maybe leaving, like, just, something you said that was nice to someone one day that they'll still think about in 5 years. Like, that's nice.
Yeah.
That might be enough,
Yeah, exactly. But is that not part of it? Like, I don't know. This is why I think it's such a fascinating
No, I think
subject.
I think it totally is. And I think I just it totally is. It's totally that. I just my brain automatically goes to the biggest ones you can think of.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe it's also a difference in what you're saying. It's like you can imagine if the headline is sort of legacy, the path then splits into two kind of subcategories. And the one is fame and the one is impact.
Yeah.
And as much as you might have Marilyn Monroe's face on a tea towel, I can't help but think, like, but that's not her though. It's not. That's ink. That's ink in a shape, and that shape has become a sign, and that sign refers to an idea of old Hollywood and glamour. But like no one, even the biggest Marilyn Monroe fan out there who might have a house wallpapered in her image, like that is not Marilyn Monroe. That is the idea of Marilyn Monroe and what she's come to represent. And that's kind of, that falls under fame, is like you actually stop being a human and you become a signifier for a series of other kind of concepts. But when you speak about the kind of other sort of legacy, it's impacting other people. And a word that I've kind of noticed is like bubbled up in a lot of your answers about quite different things is this idea of connection. And that feels like that is where impact is felt, right? Which is like that your actions change someone else, that you can make art and like they change as a result of that, and also, obviously imply, hopefully for the better. Totally. But again, that is beyond your control. But
totally. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was getting at too. Like, what is legacy? Is it the face on a t-shirt? Is it the replicated image, or is it like these stories being passed down from people that actually knew you and understood you, and then want to train people? I don't know, that. As like intense as it is going to that school and feeling all that, it's really beautiful and really amazing that, like, it's just the teachings is continually being taught and it's there.
Yeah.
And it's, and then the flip side of it is just it was just bizarre. It was just really bizarre having both of those experiences in a very short amount of time.
I can imagine. Sorry, did I just cut you off?
No.
The last time we were in LA, we went to the cemetery where Marilyn Monroe is buried, which I don't know if you've been there, but it's tiny and it's like in between all of these big buildings. You would never, ever, ever know it was there.
Is it Hollywood Forever? Is that where she is? Or
no, it's not in Hollywood. It's like near Santa Monica.
okay.
Anyway, so it's sort of like just like in between office buildings. It's very, very small, and there's a whole lot of like Hollywood royalty that are buried there, but it's tiny and unassuming, and we just we would never have known it was there except the client that we were over there working with. We were like, what, anything
What
like,
see?
weird little things that we wouldn't know to go and see, and he recommended us to go there. And there was something that was so incredibly powerful, and the same sort of like thing of like being there in LA, Hollywood, where dreams are made of, all of these sorts of things. And then in this like little garden oasis in between banks where all of these incredible storytellers that had both, fame and impact over time were buried just in normal soil with normal headstones. There weren't massive monuments erected in their honor. They were just normal, like everyone else who's died. And it was, I don't even know what the point of this is, but I found it an incredibly profound,
it's like
sort of
humanizing.
Experience. Yeah. And I think in that sort of thing of like thinking about their legacy in terms of their impact and their contribution as opposed to the face on the tea towel, that was a really sort of, it wasn't sad, but I guess it was sort of like sobering of being like, oh yeah, like they were humans with bodies. They like slept and shat and cried and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't just exist within my television.
Totally. And that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And being at the school, even just like walking up the stairs, they're so worn. They have like huge dips in every single stair, and you just go, oh, this is because people that I admire who are good at the thing that I want to be good at walked up these stairs and they learnt stuff, and they weren't good straight away. They had to come to a place and learn a lesson and learn some teachings and sit in a room just like I'm doing and walk up these stairs, and it was cool. But I don't know.
There is something so special about that.
Tactile and so special about being able to see the marks left behind so visually and feel them in a way. Yeah.
I think that is such a, like knowing that your feet have been in the same place as someone else. I wonder if that's why people love the like the Hollywood stars too with the handprints, like to imagine the person putting their hands in there and seeing if your hand is the same size as their hand. But like that means something, but it would feel like it does.
Totally. Totally. It's the tactile thing. Yeah. It's the like, this is just a human. We're all just here, just doing human stuff, walking up some stairs, like putting my hand in wet cement, just like, we'll do that.
That normal day-to-day ritual that we all do.
I feel like that kind of, and of course there are about 10,000 questions I want to ask you. I don't even know which side of your career to even, those, you exist in these two different worlds that in and of themselves are so rich. And so I think because they both have that element of being so familiar to most people, but also completely shrouded in this magic of not knowing what happens behind these stories.
It's funny because a lot of people don't know that I exist in both worlds. I kept it a secret I kept it very separate for the first few years. I didn't tell anyone at work that I was an actor. I didn't tell anyone acting that I was working in reality.
Were you worried that it would somehow undermine?
Yeah, someone told me on my first job, don't tell anyone here that you're an actor.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I didn't for a long time.
Was that good advice, do you think?
I don't know.
Do you know where that advice came from, like the intention
Something
behind it?
Something along the lines of like once they see you behind the camera, they can't see you in any other role. But I don't
I call
know.
bullshit.
I don't know.
work in the industry. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if
Interesting.
that's true, because the more I have talked about it, everyone is multifaceted. Everyone does other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you talk to this isn't a real example, but like I could talk to a cameraman that's really amazing, but he's also like snowboards every weekend, and that's a whole life and has a whole community there. Like,
Yeah.
everyone has other stuff.
It drives me. This is like I get so angry about this, because I found this at art school as well, which after years and years, every single artist there has a day job that is paying for their practice. Every single fucking one, bar nobody.
Yeah.
And yet after 2 or 3 years in that place, you would be hard pressed for anyone to really be able to tell you what those other jobs are.
Actually, I think you just uncovered exactly why I didn't talk about it.
It's fucked. It's like, God forbid, because that's it, right? It like the narrative is that it would undermine your credibility as a serious artist.
Yeah.
And what is so heartbreaking to me is like, not only in my mind, not only does it not undermine the seriousness of your practice, I think it adds dimensionality. Who the fuck are you to make creative work if you're not existing in the world?
Yeah.
What are you responding to?
Yeah.
Like, what is making you an artist if like you're existing in this bubble of whatever, and like these missed stories, these missed insights, this whole richness is lost because everyone is pretending to be what they think a real artist looks like.
Yeah.
Except there is, according to that definition, there are no real artists.
Yeah. That it's so true. And actually, because I was told not to talk about it in reality, but going through acting school, you're told like, if there's any other career that you enjoy, is that if there's anything else that you can pursue, don't do this. Being an artist is so hard. This can only be the one thing that you pursue. Don't have a backup plan. That followed me for so long. It was like, do not have a backup plan. Don't have a plan B. Because if you do, you're not a real actor.
Yeah, you're not committed enough.
You're not committed enough. That's exactly what it is.
I hate it.
That's exactly
I think
what it is.
So toxic.
And I was
it's
in
disgusting.
hospo just like working nights for so long, barely earning the money to like even use my days for things like going to classes, which is what they want you to do. It's like keep up, acting stuff, like keep going to classes, keep making work, which is great. You should do as much of that as you can, but you have to be able to pay for it. And just working like a bar job can't really do that.
Yeah.
And then I just got to a point and I was like, fuck it. I just want to work. I want to try and have both things. I want to go to work and actually enjoy it and get something out of it and not feel so drained and hate it. I want to enjoy. I'm mainly earning money from a thing that I hate, right? So I should try and earn money from a thing that I love.
Yeah.
Because I spend a lot of time doing it. And I am now, and I love it. I love going to work.
Yeah, it shows when you speak about it. When you speak about it, it really is. I feel like for those not watching this conversation, Jessamy and I are wrapped. Like you tell this, and it's whether you're speaking about your show or your work or your day job, so to speak. Like it's fascinating, and it only adds value. And I love being able to share that. I just think that the more dimensions humans have, everyone only stands to benefit from that. Like, like why would there be shame in working harder?
There is. And I feel like I do judge myself if I've worked, if I've taken a art department job that's full time for a little while, I feel really, really guilty and I feel really bad and I beat myself up about it because I'm like, you're not a real actor now. You don't do it anymore. You're spending all your time doing that. Like you're not an actor. And then like have a really hard time with that. And then I go back and take a job. Like I've made sure this one that I'm on now is like I still have the job that I want. Like I still get to be dressing sets and doing all the really creative stuff, but I'm just casual, which is still like enough, like actually a lot of work, but it means I can go and I have a show coming up in 2 weeks in Sydney.
Tell us all about it.
Plug your shit.
Yes, I'm doing Never Said Motel, the show that I was talking about before, the one that I've been working on
Amazing.
for a while in Sydney at Bondi Festival on the 30th of June and then the 1st and the 2nd of July. 6 shows in 3 days, which is a lot, but it's very exciting.
That's a lot. How
That's awesome.
exciting. Okay, we'll pop, if you send us links to that, we'll make sure that that goes on all of the things.
And in a hotel room, which is really cool.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh,
really, really cool. Yeah.
Have you done it like that before?
I've done it in a motel. Yep, I have.
Fun.
And which was just a lot smaller, but really cool. And we just did a 20-minute version of it in a motel room about 3 times a night for a festival called OK Motels, which is like a music festival that goes around Victoria, and it's amazing. So I did it in motel rooms there, but this is going to be the whole show, like the hour-long format with about 20 audience members, all like jammed into a hotel room around a bed, and they're just going to perform on a bed. It's pretty cool.
Oh, God. I want to be there so much.
Yeah.
Me
it's very exciting.
Oh, well, if it's on again in Melbourne anytime soon, please let us know. And
of course.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely to meet you in person because we kind of became like Instagram friends, all based off Alice Edie's review of Muriel's wedding.
Yeah, important. Important things to discuss.
Which sparked
I have opinions.
passionate conversation because we both feel very passionately about this movie.
Yes.
That ended in we should continue this conversation over a glass of wine sometime, and then the weeks go by and sicknesses and things, but we finally got to be here, and it was just such a joy. You are such a joy. And, as Alice rightly said, to see someone, like you talk about your contestants being passionate and it being delightful to be around, when that radiates from you as well.
That's so nice.
Thank you for all of it.
It's nice to be here.
And is there anywhere else, just as a final kind of closing, that we can direct people to your other shows, podcasts? Where are you in the world, and where can people find more of you?
I do have a podcast. It is very niche. It's about Grey's Anatomy. So it's like a Grey's Anatomy recap podcast where we kind of just look at it now from our eyes that are a bit older than when we first started watching it, and have a lot of opinions.
So
Still
good.
love it.
What's it
Still
called?
love it. It's called Scalpels and Tequila. It is on all of the podcast places. And it's fun. It's really fun. If you like Grey's Anatomy, I think it's a really good time. We have a really great community of people that get very opinionated and chatty, and we have great discussions on there. So it's a fun time. And there's, Never Said Motel in Sydney coming up. That's me for now.
Oh, amazing. Well, Tamzen, thank you so much. You're a pure delight. And
let's go watch Lego Masters.
yeah, I've never actually seen it. But I will watch Hamish Blake in absolutely anything.
Fair.
So, yeah. All right. Thank you, beautiful Tamzen, beautiful Alice, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Imposter Syndrome Club. Please follow us wherever you find your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra kind, rate and review. Or if you got any insights or value from this, share with a friend.
You can also find us on Instagram @ImposterPod or online at impostersyndromeclub.com.